Good morning. Presentation strategies, the topic for today. Before we start with presentation strategies, let us evaluate our topic. What is presentation and what is strategies? Strategies is a defense word which is not used by the general people. Later on, the general people also started using the word strategies. Strategy means meticulous planning, where everything should be win-win situation. So what is presentation? Presentation is an effective medium of communication by the speakers to express his or her views to the audience. Presentation is an effective medium of communication that needs meticulous planning, and that is why we say presentation strategies. Presentation should be convincing and effective. Without effective presentation, the audience will be bored. If you want to have an impact on the audience, your presentation should be very effective and convincing. Now let us look at the types of presentations. There are two types of presentations. The first type is individual presentation. This involves an individual or a single organization on a particular theme. Group presentation, presentation of more than one individual or more than one organization on a common theme. What are the things we should know during presentation? What are the things a presenter should keep in mind during presentation? The speaker must know the following about the audience. The audience is most important factor of presentation, because as the customer is the king, the audience is the king during presentation. One should have the understanding level and the knowledge of the audience. The understanding level of the audience and the knowledge of the audience is very important when you are presenting. Age, sex, culture, taste and interest of the audience should be given prime importance. This should be kept in mind while giving a good presentation. One should identify the primary audience and recognize the decision makers and positive molders. The decision makers and the positive molders are those type of audience who create an impact on other audiences. So the presenter should be very careful in recognizing the decision makers and opinion molders. The size of the audience is very important. This should be kept in mind of the size of the audience, and adequate measures should be taken to accommodate the audience in a very conducive environment or locale. One is very important that the presenter should evaluate the reaction of the audience, because the reaction of the audience should be respected. The nature of the audience can be either passive, active, or the audience can also be hostile. But it is the presenter who has to turn the passive listeners into active listeners, and by his charming personality, by his beautiful delivery, he has to attract the audience towards himself. The next important thing during presentation one has to keep in mind is the locale. So what is a locale? It refers to the physical environment where the presentation will take place. The speaker must have the knowledge about the size of the venue. The venue can be an open stage, it can be a seminar hall, it can be a conference hall, it can be a room, or it can be an amphitheater. So we should know what is the exact venue, and this is known as locale technically. The sitting arrangement of the audience. If you know the sitting arrangement of the audience, the presenter can adjust himself as per the sitting arrangement of the audience. It becomes easy for him because he will understand in what arrangement the audience is sitting. Maybe the audience is sitting in a classroom arrangement, maybe in a conference arrangement, and accordingly the presenter can choose his address system. Next is the public address system, or we call it as the PA system. Collar mic, cordless mic, stand mic, etc. The presenter must have a first-hand knowledge of all these things. Next, he has to also look upon or have a knowledge of the audio-visual aids which is required during presentation. The comfort of the audience, like presence of fans, AC, lights, acoustics and other comforts should be taken into account by the presenter, because a comfortable audience will be a good and active listener to the presentation. Important steps in presentation. There are 4 important steps in presentation. The first step is planning. Planning is defining the purpose, defining the topic of the presentation, the purpose of the presentation, collection of information, data, knowledge of audience, locale, and writing outlines. The next step comes as writing. Writing the central idea, the theme, and dividing the write-up into opening, body, and closing. Next step is completing. Once the writing has been done, it is the time of revising, editing, checking of grammatical errors, keeping backup of the material to be presented. The last step of presentation, which is very important, is rehearsing. For a successful, effective and qualitative presentation, rehearsing is a very important factor. How to rehearse for a presentation? Either you can rehearse with the peer groups and friends who can help you out. Rehearsing before a mirror is very effective. The best of speakers, actors and actresses, they have always rehearsed before a mirror before their final presentation. Recording the speech and listening to the recordings. Nowadays we have all type of facilities, technologies have developed. So recording the speech and listening to the recordings will really help for good rehearsal. Video recording of speech and keeping a record of time of presentation. This is very important. While making a video recording, the starting time and the finishing time of presentation can be taken note of. Methods of delivery. There are few methods of delivery which mostly the presenters use. The first method is memorizing the manuscripts. For this, a presenter needs good memory power. If he hasn't a good memory power, his speech, his uncontinued speech may confuse the audience. If lines are forgotten in between, and speaker may become an object of criticism. Reading from the manuscript. This is a very common method. Speaker maintains good eye contact with the audience while reading out the manuscript. Speaking from notes and outlines. Points are made in bullets and are elaborated. Impromptu or extempore. This type of presentation must be avoided. If not thorough in the topic, the audience get confused. Chances of paralanguage creeping up is very common in impromptu type of presentation. Other factors of good presentation. Let us talk about kinesics. This is the science of body language. Proxemics, space or zone. Chronemics is the time dimension or time management. Now, what is kinesics? Kinesics is the name given to the study of body's physical movements. In other words, it is the way the body communicates without words, that is through various movements of its parts. The body, the hand, the torso, the movement of this is known as the movement of this. We will be seeing or will be learning elaborately in our next chapters. Example, nodding your head, blinking your eyes, waving your hands, etc. Kinesics includes personal appearance and dressing sense. How you groom yourself, how you look yourself for the occasion, how you keep up yourself for the occasion is known as your personal appearances. God has given you appearances which you cannot change, but many things can be brought as a change for good presentation. Posture, how you stand, how you sit, how you walk, how you keep your vertebral column. This is posture. Gesture is again the movement of the torso, the hands, the body, and facial expression and eye contact. Proxemics. Proxemics is the study of physical space in interpersonal relations. Space is related to behavioral norms. The way people use space tells you a lot about them. Speaker should use the psychological power of this space to his advantage. Edward T. Hall, in his book, The Hidden Dimension, divides space into 4 distinct zones. The first zone is the intimate zone, which is 18 inches from the speaker. Here, siblings, spouse, very intimate persons, and they can come into this zone. Others who try to come into the zone are known as trespassers. Then we have a personal zone, which is 18 inches to 4 feet. Social zone, business zone or professional zone, one of the best zone to conduct business. This is 4 feet to 12 feet. Then we have the public zone, and the public zone is 12 feet as far as the speakers can see or hear the audience. Now, chronemics. Chronemics is the study of how human beings communicate through the use of time. This is known as time management. A speaker must begin and end his presentation in time. Must not keep the audience wait, as active listeners may turn into passive listeners due to prolonged waiting. In a prolonged presentation, there is a probability of repetition, making the presentation boring and lusterless that irritates the audience. This should be kept in mind. There should be no repetition of the same points again and again. Nuances of delivery. In order to attract the audience, certain strategies may be followed. Use of simple and familiar language, that is known as the language of the common mass, can be used. Proper eye contact and good eye contact, good pronunciation, right accent, right voice modulation and proper pitch. Views presented to be clear and brief and focused to the point. Smile and a pleasant face is important in presentation. Remember the air hostess smile, we call it the plastic smile, or it is the cosmetic smile. That's very important in presentation. No one will feel like looking at a gloomy face. Everyone likes a smiling face, and during presentation, smile is a very important factor. Good practice and knowledge of the topic before presentation will do wonders. Good vocabulary, command over language, and confidence is the magic words, the mantra of good presentation. Let us come to another aspect during presentation which we have to heed is paralinguistic. Paralinguistic features are non-verbal vocal cues that help you to give urgency to your voice. Your voice is your trademark. It is that part of yourself that adds human touch to your words. Let us consider some of the points of paralinguistic. For example, quality. Quality is a characteristic that distinguishes one voice from another. Volume is the loudness or the softness of voice. Pace, rate is the number of words which you speak per minute. The normal rate is from 120 to 150 words per minute. And if you speak very fast where the audience cannot understand, you will be called as a motor mouth. Pitch. Pitch refers to the number of vibrations per second of your voice. Articulation. Speaker should be careful not to slop, chop, truncate or omit sounds between words or sentences. Now, let us come to some more aspects of presentation. The main point which we discuss is pronunciation. If articulation means speaking out all the sounds distinctly, then pronunciation requires us to speak out sounds in a way that is generally accepted. the best way is to follow British received pronunciation. Voice modulation. While intonation refers to the tonal variations, modulation pertains to the way we regulate, vary, or adjust the tone, pitch and volume of the sound or speaking voice. Pauses. A pause is a short silence flanked by words. A pause in speaking lets the listener reflect on the message and digest it accordingly. We have to allow good pause because the listener needs time to adjust to what you're speaking of your presentation. But unusual long pause is undesirable. Negative paralanguage like long pause, abnormal pause, making sounds during long pause like etc. should be avoided. Swallowing spit once and again, using any other sound as fillers during abnormal pause must be strictly avoided. What are the things we have to avoid during presentation? Bad posture, like bending, putting weight on one foot, shifting weight to feet, swaying continuously must be avoided. Staring at a particular section of the audience is a strict no-no. Repeatedly looking at the wall clock, wristwatch, ceiling doors, ceiling fans, doors, windows, floors, and looking over the heads of the audience should be avoided. Standing static as a statue should be avoided because it will mar the attention of the audience. Putting hands in the pockets, clicking fingers, touching the nose, forehead, chin and hair again and again should be avoided. Breathing into the microphone will irritate the audience, so you should take care of it. Short-temperedness, aggressive and unpleasant language should be avoided because the audience can become hostile. Keep a very pleasant face, not tensed face. Ignoring the queries of the audience is treated as a bad manner during presentation. Using of jargons, which a particular group only can understand, should be avoided. Thank you. This is all for today on the topic presentation strategies. Have a nice day.